right, we get it rolling on the Krug Show. One more sleep before the NFL draft begins. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Big and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find. Go get the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they'll match you up to your first $100. We're also brought to you by our good friends at Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles down in the Monterey Peninsula. Great little place. Check them out. Go say hi to Anthony Catania. Give him a call at 831-521-5264. And we're brought to you by Marin Autoglass, marinautoglass.com on the web. Raj is in the house normally on Tuesday nights, but Greg Papa stopped by last night, so I asked Raj if we could possibly move to tonight, and he was kind enough to oblige. So here we are on a Wednesday night, the night before the NFL draft. And we're going to get into 4 or 5 different topics. Raj, good to see you, man. How are you?
Good to see you too. I'm hyped up. It's the night before the draft. And yeah, I'm excited, but they're mad at you, Larry. They said we're late. We're so late. We're
I
like
know,
a world
I know.
record.
Yeah, seriously. I apologize for being late. Oh my gosh, I've been late. I was late. I was trying to invite Raj. I was getting stuck behind different walls here and there. I had to send the invite via Twitter. It's a long story. Nobody died, but it was very, very scary. No, but in reality, let's get to Frank Tom Ocean. He says, "Let's go." He says, "The legend, Raj and LK, you guys, what does it say? You guys rock. Go 49ers. I hope we go heavy O-line in the draft and get a solid returner." What is that? What's the last line there? Solid returner. Salute, gentlemen. Thank you, Frank Tom Ocean. Appreciate you. Really do. And thanks for the super. All right, Raj, Tony Pauline, who's a pretty good source, former NFL scout. And, it's like sometimes you only trust things from when they come from people you trust. Mm-hmm. Well, I trust Tony Pauline, and he says the 49ers are showing a lot of interest in Darius Robinson, not Chop Robinson from Penn State. This is Darius Robinson from Missouri, a defensive end / defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. He was the Practice Player of the Week award winner at Mobile during the Senior Bowl. He's a defensive end. When I watch film of him, I see Aldon Smith, except maybe less problems and slightly bigger body. This guy goes about 290, 295. But, man, Darius Robinson, let's talk about that. What would you think of Robinson at 31?
He's got a motor on him. I was watching. Actually, I saw that this morning, and I was going to pull up. I mean, I've looked at him a little bit here and there, but I was, pulling up some more stuff this morning. I was like, oh, he's good. And I don't know if he lasts that long. If he's that's the thing. If he's at 31 and the 49ers are at their pick, and we talked about this before, I could see them going best available player. And if he's at 31, he's probably the best available player on the board. It's hard for the Niners to pass. I know a lot of people are going to sit here and say, oh, my God, they need offensive line. And I get it. I agree. I've been the biggest proponent of that. But this is John Lynch we're talking about. He loves defensive linemen. And another guy on the edge you add to this team, he can give you instant impact. And, one thing Lynch said this week is what he says every year. He goes, you know what? You're not only drafting for this year, you're drafting for the future of this team. And let's be honest, Leonard Floyd, great pickup this offseason. I think that was one of the better, free agents that they grabbed in a while. And he's 32, though. They signed him to a 2-year deal. You need to get a long-term option on the other side of Bosa. So it would make sense to get an edge if he's available. But I think the majority, the consensus of the chat would say, we're going to destroy you, John Lynch. You need to get us an offensive lineman.
Well, it's funny. They do go D-line a lot. Robinson, they seem like they go for guys who do well at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
They sent a contingent down to the Senior Bowl. You got all the best players in the country there, and whoever really stands out and shines, and Robinson clearly did. I watched the one-on-ones. He just could not be blocked. And the question is, what is he? Is he an interior defensive lineman? Is he a defensive end? Is he a 5 technique, 3-4 end? What is he? I think he is a jumbo 4-3 defensive end.
Mhm.
And if the Niners got him, I would try to get him to maybe lose 10 pounds, get closer to 280. But you put this guy at a super leaned out, fast 280, coming off the line of scrimmage opposite Bosa on first and second down. That would enable you to play Leonard Floyd in his most valuable role, which is to use him on third downs and passing downs, and maybe you could even slide Darius Robinson inside, um, in what like they used to call the NASCAR package. He could be like Arden Key. He could be kind of like a bigger, stronger, harder playing version of Chase Young. Um, I like the idea of Darius Robinson. I mean, to me, and I was talking about this earlier, when you can wed the traits of great college production, guys who make plays on Saturdays, and then combo that with great testing athlete, which is what he is. Um, I think that's really that's where you really get special players. That's where you show up in
Yeah.
training. You're like, wow, look at this,
Yeah.
because he's a great player and he's an NFL top tier athlete. And I think that's what Robinson is. And to me, that's what makes his name such an exciting name, because, they only got 3 sacks against Mahomes in the Super Bowl. They didn't. Part of the reason they lost that game is they could not get enough pressure on Mahomes in key moments. And so, yeah, you got to keep thinking defensive line. They've lost some really good players.
They
Um,
have.
they've added, but this guy's a menace, and I think he would be. I like that idea. I like, to me, your defense has teeth when it has rush, and this guy could really help your rush.
Yeah, and to take it to another step is you also got to realize down the stretch of the season, their defensive line really staggered. They have all these guys that got paid a lot of money, right? Hargrave and Bosa and everybody, and like you said, 3 sacks in the Super Bowl.
Gregory, Chase Young.
Gregory, but they just weren't getting the production. They weren't getting to the quarterback, and not only that, they couldn't stop the run. So you get a guy like this. And one other thing that Lynch said is he really loves versatility, not just on the O line, but on the D line. Like he loves guys that could kind of line up on different areas on the line. So I could see him kind of doing that if he's the type of guy that could kind of be a tweener. The only problem I have with drafting those types of guys, where I don't think he's gonna fall into that role, but they did that with Solomon Thomas, and they couldn't really slide him anywhere. They just didn't have a fit for him. So I
He's a
hope he
much
does.
smaller body than this
He's a
guy.
smaller guy, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. His frame is a lot leaner than Solomon, but if you, I just don't want him to like tinker too much with the guy and then throw him out of his position, and then he doesn't develop right. You know what I mean? But I don't think this guy has an issue of getting to that point. So, but I do see the 40. If he's available at 31, I wouldn't be surprised if they take him. I think they'd take a long look and say, man, this might be the guy. Again, Lynch said they have 16 gold helmets. Basically, that means there's like 16 guys they really, really want on this draft. He could be one of them. He definitely could be one of them.
Yeah, no, to me, I love the traits that Robinson has. He's got a high motor. He's a big guy who can play the run. And I think he's got enough bend off the edge to put on hip heat on the quarterback. Everybody's, I like him closer to 280 than 295, but I mean, that's something that he can work on. I just see a guy that, you know, could be a real force opposite Nick Bosa. I mean, you gotta have multiple guys on a defensive line that command a double team. And Bosa, by the end of the year, was the only guy who was commanding double teams. Hargrave wasn't, Armstead wasn't, none of the other guys really were. A guy like Darius Robinson is so fast and so explosive and has such a great motor at 290 pounds with great athleticism. I think he's a guy that you're going to have to combo block from time to time. And I also think the stunt game could be very strong if you're playing, stunts and twists and starting a guy outside and stunting him inside. A guy like Robinson could be absolutely deadly in that package. And I just think that the Niners think D line and pass rush and speed up the quarterback all the time. And to me, the defensive end draft is a little thin, and that
Mhm.
puts kind of a premium on Robinson as well. And Once I saw him in the one-on-ones in Mobile, just dominating guy after guy after guy, and saw the way his motor, operated out there. He's athletic, he's strong, he's explosive, and he's got a great motor. And then when you factor in all those factors and big time size, he's a tough guy to block. And it would be nice, it'd be nice if they hit on somebody like this and wound up having not just a good player opposite Bosa, but a guy who's a force, a guy who was, a Bosa talented, a Bosa type talent in his own right. And I think Darius Robinson has the ability to really put heat on the quarterback. So that to me is an exciting rumor if it's true.
Yeah. And again, they've been searching for that other guy on the other side of Bosa for years. So, I mean, they might do it again. I know Niner fans would be sick to their stomach if they see John Lynch pull up to the podium and say, we're driving another D lineman. I know. I just already know how the comments are going to be. I already know the vibe out there. But hey, if it's a player that's going to help this team win a damn Super Bowl, I think at the end of the day, everybody's going to be happy when the dust settles. But I already know if they take another D lineman tomorrow, it's gonna be
There'll be
nitty
people
gritty tomorrow.
pointing out that they need O line. Well, it's funny. He was asked about the O line, and people were trying to pin him down the other night or the other day down in Santa Clara on the strength of the draft, and people were like, "Well, is it the O line?" And he's like, "It's really the line of scrimmage on both sides," as if to say, "There's a lot of good D linemen here." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I heard that, and I was like, the question was, man, is this draft loaded with offensive linemen? And if you really think you're going to take a D lineman, that the answer would be, well, there's really good linemen across the board. And that's exactly what he said. So we'll see.
And
But there, for those of you who are like sitting there going, who are they likely to take the eve of the NFL draft? You may want to put on some film of Darius Robinson from Missouri and watch him do his thing, because I think there's a high likelihood if they stay at 31, he definitely could be the guy.
yeah, and you made a good point there, Larry. Last thing I'll say about it, and this is probably the biggest point that you said that I really was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. The edge draft class this year is not that deep. So if they want to add some guys, they're gonna have to reach down pretty quickly in the first 2 rounds, most likely. Because I've been doing a lot of mock drafts and stuff, and every time I'm like, man, there's really not really good like these like just like dogs at edge. There's some guys they could develop, but if you want a guy that's gonna give you immediate like talent and immediate impact, it's really thin this year at that spot.
Yeah. I mean, they like a guy who can set the edge and be 270, 275, bigger body defensive ends. There's guys in this draft, but, a lot of the better ones are 235, 240. Javon Solomon, 240. You look at Luther Ellis's kid, Jonah Ellis, 240. I really like Mo Kamara. He's like in that 250 range.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of guys who are like 270. And in this case, I think, Robinson is the kind of guy that could be, 275, 280 in that range if they leaned him out a little bit. And I think he could be an absolute force. So I'm a big Darius Robinson fan. He was one of the first guys I liked in this class. And for Tony Pauline to say they're showing interest, that means they're showing interest. All right, let's talk a little bit about Brandon Aiyuk. It wouldn't be a live stream if we didn't talk Aiyuk. Look at you. You got the Aiyuk shirt going.
Yeah, we gotta rock our boy. Yeah.
You got a lot of Niner gear. Do you have an Aiyuk jersey? Do you have a
Yeah, I got Aiyuk jersey, but I've been rocking. I wanted to wear the Aiyuk shirt specifically for tonight, just for you, Larry. Yeah,
a little show of support for Brandon Aiyuk?
of course, my guy.
Aiyuk, saw the Yaman Ra contract today and started dancing.
Yeah, he did.
Did you put that out, Raj?
Yeah, I posted that one. That was funny, dude.
He's dancing,
He's gonna
and
get paid either way. He knows it.
yeah, I mean, the question is, did the Amon Ra put the final nail in the coffin for, the marketplace, to the point where, we have no idea what the Niners have budgeted to pay him, but it sounds like he's going to want 30 million or maybe north of 30 million a year. Are the Niners going to pay him? And if they do it, are they going to do it this weekend so they can then use that extra cap room to maybe acquire another veteran player via trade on day 3? Or are they going to trade him And Daniel Jeremiah threw out Jacksonville and Indianapolis. We've heard a lot about Pittsburgh. We've heard mentions of Washington. Pittsburgh cleared $7 million of cap room today from their cap. Jacksonville, Trent Baalke needs a receiver in the worst way. He's terrible at picking receivers. Indianapolis, we know Ballard and Lynch have made deals before. I mean, in reality, Ballard and Lynch made the DeForest Buckner-Kinlaw extravaganza move. Is Indianapolis going to try to offer the 15th pick in the draft for Brandon Aiyuk? They need a receiver. What are you thinking? The more people are talking, it seems like in the last 24 hours, the more it sounds like the Niners are extremely open to moving Aiyuk. Lynch said that he anticipates he'll be there, be with the team, but he wouldn't guarantee it, which means that they probably have a price, and it's just a matter of is somebody going to meet their price. What do you think? What do you think's going on if you had to assess the Brandon Aiyuk 24 hours before the draft saga?
I wasn't nervous until you just started talking about it, and I heard it all just bubbling up. I was like, "Oh shit!" I'm a little bit more nervous now, Larry, listening to you talk about it. Yeah, no, that's a good question. And you know what? John Lynch told us he doesn't expect them to be off the team on Friday. He said he's listening to calls. Obviously, people are going to call. It's due diligence season. This is the draft. People are going to come with it, and there always is a price for anybody. Anybody's got a price to pay, no matter who you are. There's a price. Now, the Niners probably have a steep price. And, I know Michael Silver yesterday wrote his article, and, he said that they're still open to a trade.
Anything's possible, I think
Anything's
was the theme.
possible. Yeah, and he said that they're maybe looking at possibly a first-round pick for Brandon. There's, an NFL executive said that's too high. So, maybe putting some smoke on there.
Some believe they'll take a second and a player, or a second and another pick, if it was a high second-round pick.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, he could have, if Lynch last year, I asked Lynch about Bosa. He's like, I said, is there any scenario you would trade Bosa? He's like, absolutely not. And then just shut the whole thing down.
Yeah.
If he could have done that. He could have done that the other day. He could have, hey, what's going on with Aiyuk? Aiyuk is going to be a 49er, and shut the whole thing down, but he didn't.
Well, he tried. He did say, he's been saying the same thing for the last 3 press conferences.
We're having good talks, is all
we're having good talks. He wants to keep the man's money out of his mouth. And I like that. Professional.
But doesn't he also, Raj, not want to make it seem like we're at an impasse? I mean, what's the advantage to say, hey, you know what? We're at an impasse. He's asking for money, and his market is going in an area that's so far beyond our means that we're going to consider any and all options. He wants everybody to believe that's trading for him that the Niners can keep Aiyuk and pay Aiyuk. So that's the message he's sending. But it really sounds to me like he's playing his cards very close to the vest. And if there's somebody out there, a team saying to Mike Silver, hey, they may take a second, that sounds like they're very motivated to move Aiyuk. Well, and we all know he's great. So it's all about the cap.
It's the cap, it's the money, and also maybe their talks are good, but we don't know how far along their talks are, because I guess they've been really focused on the draft, and the Niners, they move in a very methodical way. They stretch it out. Although one thing he said that
he doesn't want to stretch it out.
He doesn't want to stretch it out. He says, I don't want to be like Debo and Bosa. He goes, I don't want it to get to that point. So I think they're really working very diligently on trying to get this done. I think this is different than other situations, but also too, Brand's like a very reserved guy. He's like kind of a quiet guy, and I think Lynch respects that. And he says, "Hey, look, I'm not going to throw his stuff out there. Like this is him. We respect it. His camp says respect us, and I'm going to do it." I think that's where Lynch is coming from. But I think they're really trying to get this done. But again, you'd be silly if you're any GM and you can't look at offers and you can't hear them. He's going to hear them out. He's going to hear like desperation offers. And hey, if he gets something that he's like, there's no way I would have thought we're going to get this type of deal, we have to do it. But again, the other teams that want him have to look at the money too and see if it makes sense for them. But the other part of that too, Larry, is this year's draft class. We talked about how D-line, edge rushers is kind of thin. Wide receivers this year is probably one of the better draft classes in a while. So a lot of teams may not be pressed to go draft a guy like Brandon Aiyuk because of the fact of you can go get a really solid wide receiver and pay him a lot less money, develop him, and probably get maybe not the same production you get out of Aiyuk, but you'd get pretty good production out of a rookie wide receiver. So it's not to say that any wide receiver is just going to be as good as Aiyuk because he's a 4-year pro. He's been so good. He's blocking. He's got the intangibles. He's been very efficient. But you're going to get a guy that's going to be pretty good that's going to get paid a lot less. So I think that's where Lynch and the rest of the league are kind of in this influx. And receivers are getting paid this year. So they know these teams that are drafting these receivers, they're gonna have to pay some money in a couple years. Amon Ra got 30 mil this year, like you said. Devonta Smith got paid a couple weeks ago. He got a big deal. Wide receiver money's getting up. It's stacking up. So the Niners know they got a price to pay, but I think that they also know that they can't mess this up for Brock Purdy because this is a guy that's very closely tied to Brock's development himself. They got to pay him next year a lot of money. You want to make sure that his top receiver, his guy that he has a lot of chemistry with, is there because it's going to be harder to develop another receiver with Brock. So I think the incentive for the 49ers is there. I think they'll get it. I kind of have this weird feeling that they're going to breaking news tomorrow that they're extending him tomorrow on the draft day. Like we usually get draft day trades. I
Yeah.
think we're gonna have a draft day extension, Larry. I don't know. I thought today, I was like, you know what? Maybe
I,
that's why BA's dancing.
yeah, I mean, I could see it happening this weekend just because that would give them an extra maybe $10 million of cap room to play with. If they could reduce his cap number from 14 to 4 or 5, something like that, and potentially try to trade for a Buda Baker or some kind of a good veteran on day 3. If those guys are on the market, there's a lot of rumor that there's several veterans on the market. Um, the interesting thing to me on the Aiyuk thing is just that where the market has really gone, and it's just exploded. And I don't know that they can replace him. He's a number one receiver, and can they find a number one X receiver in this draft if they moved on from him? It's all about kind of how Shanahan sees it. Which brings me to the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft, which had them taking Xavier Worthy. Worthy was one of the names that was mentioned in the silver piece as, hey, if the Niners do make a move and pivot and go in a different direction, they could try to replace Aiyuk with one of these 4 or 5 receivers. And one of them was Xavier Worthy, who ran a 4.21 40. And John Lynch said, hey, this is the kind of time of year where we're trying to add significant things to our roster. In some cases, strength, in some cases, size, in some cases, speed. And he individually said speed. There's no question that Worthy adds speed. What do you think? I mean, Kyle Shanahan was a wide receiver at Texas. Xavier Worthy is a wide receiver from Texas. A lot of people like A.D. Mitchell, who ran in the 4.3s, but Worthy ran in the 4.2s, and he really would create a lot of space underneath for the 49ers. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's a bigger, better version of Danny Gray, even
Yeah.
faster. What do you think of the Niners adding I've asked Shanahan this question 3 or 4 times and through the years. How important is it to have the go pattern guy who can run off the coverage as a play caller? And he's like, it's huge. It creates space. It helps everybody. The defenders know when there's an impact speed guy out there. What do you think of replacing Aiyuk with a big time home run hitter and then maybe coming back in the 4th round or 5th round with Luke McCaffrey and adding a speed element in Worthy and adding a, move the chains element in McCaffrey, and maybe, using that extra pick on, an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, if you can get up to 15. I mean, if you can get to 15, you might be able might be able to add any number of defensive players. What do you think?
I mean, that's a good question, but in terms of the 49ers offense, like the more I look at it, because normally I'd say, I don't know if I want Worthy. He's a speed guy, this and that. But if you look at the Dolphins model, they kind of use the Niners, offensive scheme with Mike McDaniel, but then he adds that speed element. And we've seen that offense flies. You get Waddle and Tyreek. You get a guy like Worthy in that offense, and you take the top off the defense with the space and all the motion. I mean, it would probably be deadly. Now, he's not the same type of receiver as Aiyuk, where he can use his route tree and everything. But with the 49ers, the way that they have Debo and Kittle and CMC and all that and Jennings creating all these mismatches, he's going to get one-on-one opportunities. If Xavier Worthy's one-on-one with the receiver with his speed, he should be able to win most of his matchups, and he could be a very efficient receiver like Aiyuk was. So he's definitely a different type of receiver than the 49ers are typically, known to have under Kyle Shanahan. I think it'd be fun to see what he could do. But yeah, right away off the book, you're going to be a little weaker in that area because, I mean, Ayuk, 4 years, he's put on the muscle, he's got the blocking ability, he's that veteran, he's got that presence in him. So Worthy would definitely be have a lot to prove. Now, the Luke McCaffrey thing, yeah, he'd be a nice chain mover, but they already have a good chain mover with Jennings, and he's clutch. Although we don't know if he's going to be there next year. After this year's season, he'll be a free agent. So yeah, definitely something to consider for the future, like Lynch said. And I think McCaffrey can bulk up and continue to develop. They also have Ronnie Bell, who I like, who could be a professional chain mover down the line. But
Yeah,
definitely
there's
wouldn't
also
hurt.
Tyler Boyd out there. If you wanted to go
Yeah,
sign Boyd as a free agent, I mean,
yeah,
you could go that route. I'm just thinking of options, but wide receivers have to complement one another. And really, if you said what do the Niners need, they need a Xavier Worthy. I mean, I'm not saying they need to have a guy with 4.21 speed,
it's
but
crazy.
they don't have the speed element because Danny Gray hasn't fulfilled that potential, hasn't
Yeah.
been able to get on the field. You say, what do they really need? Okay, so right now, Debo on the all the underneath stuff and all the gadget plays, and then you've got right now you've got Aiyuk across the middle, and you've got Jennings as your third down guy on the sideline or across the middle. And really, if you wanted to, and they've got Trent Taylor, who's a return guy, and they got Ronnie Bell, who's kind of a return guy. So if you said what's the complement to what their current receivers are, it would be that speed element, that home run threat. I don't know if Xavier Worthy can stay healthy, but that's intriguing. And then if you mixed in the idea of potentially moving Ayuk, now you're talking about maybe adding Worthy and McCaffrey's brother Luke. Now you've added two receivers. The impact of Worthy down the field, and whatever a guy like CMC, Luke McCaffrey's brother, can potentially, or Luke McCaffrey, see what he could potentially add as a probably more of a chain mover, a good route runner, a guy with good hands. Um, to me, it's going to be interesting because I think where there's smoke, there's fire. I think Lynch could have
Mm,
shut this whole thing down easily if he
mm.
wanted to, but he didn't, and it's because they're cap strapped, and I think they're already at a financial impasse between what they want to pay Ayuk and what Ayuk wants to make, and there are limits. I mean, that's the thing. There's limits to what you can spend and what you can pay.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Amon Ra deal today, when that came, I was like, oh my
It's a
god,
huge
that's
deal,
crazy, dude.
and
I was
I'm on Ross better though than him, wouldn't you
Yeah,
say?
he's a wide receiver one. He's got the targets, and I think that's kind of where this is hard to gauge because Brandon Ayuk, and I've seen other people like GM or people that have other sports handles, and analysts and this and that, and you get like this weird conversation about Ayuk. Like he's not a wide receiver one. He's helped because of the fact they have Kittle and Debo and CMC, and he only gets the one on ones. He's not able to beat double teams and this, that, and the other. So it's tough because I don't know if a lot of teams value him as a wide receiver one because yeah, he got 1,300 yards. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons as the fourth option. Now imagine now you extrapolate that, put him on another team, make him the number one, and give him a surplus of targets. He should naturally have a lot more yards than he normally does. But then the other thing is, well, if he's the number one target, he's not getting the one-on-ones like he does with the Niners. So it's a tough conversation to really, um, you know, to quantify how much Ayuk is worth. Because yeah, if you just look at it and see the importance he has to the 49ers, he could probably say he's worth the 30 million. But then if you take that away and put him on another team, will he be the same receiver? Would he put up the same stats as Amon Ra on the Lions? It's hard to gauge that, Larry, because there are a lot of factors that help him with the Niners. But again, too, for the 49ers, he's that important because he has that rapport and chemistry with Brock Purdy, and that's something you cannot replace. Like his chemistry with Brock is so vital for both of them. You take away Ayuk, yeah, you can get Xavier Worthy, but will he have the same timing and chemistry that Brock and Ayuk have? It's hard to say. And again, you have a young quarterback. You need to make sure that he has a wide receiver that he's like in sync with, and they can grow together and develop together. So it's a tough one. It's a tough price to put on Aiyuk. What do you think his price is?
I think his price is like $30 million. I think he wants to be paid between 28 and $30 million. And I think the Niners would like to pay him about 22, 23. And
Oh,
I think they're just far apart. And
that's bad.
my guess is that they know and like Ayuk. Ayuk knows and likes them, but Ayuk wants that big bag over what they want to pay. And I think they're going to draw a line in the sand and especially if they can find a team that's willing to give them a pick in the first round. And I think they will. I think they will. I think Jacksonville definitely would be willing to move their first round
Yeah.
pick for Ayuk. Maybe Indy too. Steelers, I'm not sure, but it sounds like the Steelers are very interested. I think Washington could have interest if it got to a round 2 situation. But the one is the team that has the highest pick that if they want to make the deal is probably Indianapolis. Now, the question is this: if the Niners get the 15th pick in the draft,
Oh
who are
God.
they looking at? Who are they looking for? And I was watching going through the prospects today in the teens and looking at, who's where and who could be available. I'm pretty convinced that if they made a deal with Indianapolis or Jacksonville, as
Mm,
Daniel Jeremiah is indicating, those are the two hot names after Aiyuk. I really think that their target in the draft would be the corner from Toledo, Quinyon
mm,
Mitchell, who was a teammate of Samuel Womack the third for the Niners at Toledo.
no.
And Quinyon Mitchell is just one of the best prospects in the entire draft. He was incredibly productive. He had 4 interceptions in a game. He's one of the best man-to-man corners, probably the best man-to-man corner in the entire draft. I think he's probably going to be there in the middle of the first round. He also then went to Indy and had just a phenomenal combine where he showed what a tremendous athlete he is. And I just really think that the Niners' takeaway from the Super Bowl is that the Chiefs had Snead and McDuffie, and that they didn't, that they need to be better as far as that corner. And I don't know about the future of Mooney. Can they sign Mooney long term? Can they sign Lenore long term? Do they have to choose? And to me, if they do wind up trading Ayuk and get into the mid first round, I think they go Quinyon Mitchell
Uh,
at corner. And I think that then, when their pick comes up at the end of the first round at 31, they go receiver or maybe offensive or defensive line and go receiver in round 2,
oh
maybe
my God.
trade up. But I think it's Quinyon Mitchell. That would be the guy I would think. Who, if
Wow.
they do trade up to the middle of the first round, they're at 15 with Indy's pick. They're at 17 with Jacksonville's pick. If they're there, who do you think they're looking at? Because I'm pretty set that I think it's Mitchell.
If they trade up and get one of those picks, and they take a cornerback, Larry, I would love to see. I'm
What?
gonna be sick. I'm gonna be sick, Larry. I'm gonna be sick.
But you don't think they need a corner?
I don't think they do because they have two really good corners. I'm not saying that they don't because they need a nickel. But I think the importance, if you pass on a generational tackle, because at 15, you can get one of the best tackles and set yourself up. If you pass
Well,
on an
let's
O
just say
lineman,
Fuaga's gone.
okay,
So maybe Latham's there.
Latham
Would you
or
rather have
Fontana,
JC Latham, or would you rather have Fatanu, or would you rather have Quinyon Mitchell?
I'd have one of those linemen. If they go and get it, if they trade away Brandon Ayuk to get a cornerback, I will be so sick to my stomach, Larry. I will be so sick. Oh my God! I'm not saying he's a
What if
bad.
it's a true shutdown guy, though? What if it's a true number one corner? Because Quinyon Mitchell would be their best corner. He would be a dominant number one corner.
They got a good. They have Mooney and Lenore. It's not like they're not strapped for a corner. If you trade Brandon Ayuk for a cornerback, I'm coming down to that office. And I love cornerbacks. I was screaming at the top of my lungs for years. Go get a cornerback. Go get a cornerback. Sauce Gardner. All these guys. If they do that tomorrow, I'm gonna be sick, Larry. I'm gonna be sick. Oh my
Frank Tom Ocean says, "Can we get a bulky
God. That would be
liking
a bulky move.
talking about tomorrow's first round pick?" It's funny, Frank, that you want a Trent Bulky because I'm sitting there at 17 and I need a receiver because you know what?
my guy, Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence, hasn't been able to really light it up yet. We need a receiver to kind of legitimize that pick, Lowry. And I'm telling you, I'm looking at those receivers and I'm thinking to myself, I can't pick a receiver. My name's Trent Baalke. I drafted AJ Jenkins. I don't know shit about wide receivers. And then I'm thinking, you know what? John Lynch has got Brandon Aiyuk, and I don't got to think anything about that. I know he's already good. So you know what? I said, Lynchy, here's 17, and I'll throw in a third. I need that receiver. Would you do it, buddy? Will you do it? And he's talking a lot to the Steelers, but they pick behind us. I'm afraid of Chris Ballard. I'm afraid Ballard's going to offer that 15th pick, and then I'm going to have to pick a rookie receiver, and I can't pick my nose.
There you go. There's your Trent Baalke.
That's good. Now, real quick. Okay, so if you get rid of Aiyuk, do you expect? Because this is what and I love Juwan Jennings. Is he magically going to be this great quarterback, like wide receiver too? Is he going to naturally become a 1,000-yard receiver? He's never had even close, never sniffed close to 1,000. And I'm not saying that Jennings is not good because we saw him in the Super Bowl. Could have been Super Bowl MVP, but can he sustain that type of production every week in, week out? Like that's the question. And I love Brandon Aiyuk and I love Juwan Jennings, and that's the thing. Like today, I saw on Twitter a lot of people are like, "Oh, if you get rid of Aiyuk, Jennings can just become the next guy up, and you give him all the targets." He's never had to do that as a wide receiver. That it's easier said than done. So, what do you take? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that if you're moving off of Aiyuk, you're going to have to kind of reconfigure your wide receiver core, right? So I think I think Tyler Boyd's in the mix as far as signing. I think there's a potential to draft. I will say this: if Aiyuk wasn't there, I think you could probably, I'm not saying find Aiyuk, but you could. There's guys on all 3 days of the draft that I think you could add. That would really be intriguing. I mean, you could add McCaffrey's brother. You could add Tyler Boyd. You could add a Xavier Legette or Malachi Corley in round 2. You could go that route. You could try to add Malik Washington. And then on day 3, I mean, there's so many burners. I mean, you could add a vertical threat like Tyler Harrell, who's going to be a 7th round pick probably. There's not to mention, I mean, you could draft a running back, and there's a very deep running back class, and flex out McCaffrey more and use him as a receiver more. So I definitely think you would have to redo your whole kind of wide receiver core look for sure. But there's opportunity here. I mean, there's players here. Not to mention if maybe you could get you could trade, maybe you could find a young receiver you could trade for. I mean, there's a few, there's not an Aiyuk, but the question is how much, the balance of losing Aiyuk versus what you could get for him if you moved him for a pick or two and could then kind of reposition the talent on your roster. I mean, a number 1 corner like Quinion Mitchell would be incredible. A great offensive tackle would be valuable. A great defensive tackle would be valuable. So, I mean, we're talking about a receiver they threw 3 balls to in the Super Bowl. 3.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, he only had 3 receptions in each of the playoff games. So it's not like, man, you're trading away. He's not Jerry Rice. I think he's good, but I'm pretty sure that he's priced beyond the Niners' means. And then the question is he coming back to them? Are they going to somehow match him? Are they going to pay him a ton and then move off of Debo next year and probably for nothing, or move off of Debo? Debo's been told that he's not going to be traded before, during, or after the draft this year. So he's not going anywhere. Kittle's not going anywhere this year. They just redid his deal. I mean, it's possible they re-sign. I don't think they're just going to let Aiyuk sit. He's going to be back. He's going to play on a new contract this year, right?
Yeah, I think
that's for sure.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, they're not going to play him on his 5th-year option. I think if he ultimately stays on the team, he's going to get his contract extension sooner rather than later. And again, what Lynch said was he doesn't want it to be like the Debo Bosa situation. So I'm kind of inclined to think that they're going to try to get it done quick. But Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day, Larry. It's going to be a very, very interesting day. And after if that first round is over, if Brandon Ayuk is still on the roster and he didn't get traded, I don't think they trade him the rest of the week. There's no way they. I think tomorrow is the day. You trade him, you got to trade him on the first day. That's the big move. After that, I don't think you make the move. You can't. I don't think you trade him. I think
I don't know.
tomorrow's
I
the
mean,
day.
if Washington knocked on your door on Thursday night after the end of the first round and said, we'll give you 36 and 40 and Jahan Dotson, you're getting 2 high second round picks and a receiver. I think I'm still making that trade. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's a good trade, actually. I might,
You
I
know,
might be like, okay,
I
hold on, the
mean,
door's still open.
yeah, I mean, that's 2 high second round picks.
That's a lot.
That could be
Yeah.
guys. I mean, the Niners said, people fell and, gravitated to Lynch's line when he said, hey, I have 22 first round picks. Like, after like pick 23 will be no value at all. The Niners have 22 guys ranked in the first round. It doesn't mean they're going 1 through 22. There could be 10 guys in the second round that they had ranked in the first round. So it's, we don't know how their board sits. We do know they have 22 first round picks, but it doesn't mean those 22 picks are gone after the 32nd pick. You know what I mean? So there could be guys that they had in the first round that just don't go in the first round, and they're there in the high second. I don't know. We'll see. It's an interesting thing because we all know if there was no cap, we're not talking about moving Brandon Aiyuk at all. But because there is a cap, it at least has to be discussed. One last super here before we jet. It says if BA is traded, draft Troy, then trade down from 31 and draft Jordan Morgan, who can play guard right away. Now you have your 2 tackles for the future in transition to a 2 tight end offense, and draft a wide receiver in round 3. Who's Troy? Is that the Oregon kid? Is that who you're talking about?
Jackson Powers. That's the Oregon guy.
No, that's a center.
Troy Fontana. Fontana.
Oh, Fontana
from Washington.
Fontana.
Yeah, Washington. He's good.
Here's the thing. I think Jordan Morgan is a terrible pick. Jordan Morgan is got short arms. I watched the film of him. He gets bull rushed all day by Pac-12 defensive ends. He projects more as a guard. Don't you think he's going to get bull rushed inside by the Chris Joneses of the world if Pac-12 DNs are bull rushing him? So I think Jordan Morgan is an underpowered guard, and I don't like that pick at all. Fatanu, I like a lot more.
Yeah,
I think he's ready to roll.
I like that guy. He's good. I like him.
And then this one says Higgins and Hendrickson want trade. 49ers interested. Yeah, the Bengals. Higgins wants out. Trey Hendrickson wants out. They already told Hendrickson they're not going to trade him. The Bengals make no trades. If you go look at the history of the franchise, they don't trade anybody. I mean, they traded Carlos Dunlap, but they don't get involved in a lot of trades. So I would say the chances of them trading are not good.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't see the Bengals trading. I definitely don't see the Niners trading for Hendrickson or Higgins. But the other name they say could get dealt this weekend is Justin Jefferson. Wouldn't that be something if Jefferson got moved? Raj, we'll leave it at this one. If you're a gambling man and you have to wager all that you got on one name being a Niner on draft day, at 31, we won't say just later in the draft, because I would probably go Sione Vaki, who I had on the other day. The Niners have been talking to him a lot. I could see him being a day 3 guy. I could see Frank Gore being a day 3 guy after Lynch talked about bloodlines and that kind of thing. But if you had to wager everything you got on who they're going to go with at 31 tomorrow night, who are you going to go with?
Last week we talked, and I said his name, Roger. Rosengarten. It's a boring pick, and I feel it's a reach, but I honestly have convinced myself that that's probably who they're going to pick. But if Troy Fontana is available, that's the pick. It's gonna be a tackle from Washington tomorrow. Is their pick? They spent a lot of time in Washington. They were at the pro day. Chris Forster was there with John Lynch. I really feel that they studied that old line. with a fine-tooth comb. So my pick is going to be one of those two offensive linemen from the Washington Huskies. That's my pick.
So you got to be going with Rosengarten because I don't think Fatanu's going to be there.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be there. So they're going to probably go with Roger Rosengarten, which people are going to be pissed off because it's kind of a reach.
Yeah, when he got destroyed by Michigan in the national championship game, absolutely destroyed. I'm going to go with all roads lead back to to the defensive line. I do think I think Tony Pauline's onto something. I think Darius Robinson is the guy. I think it gives them a defensive end, more rush. And I think he's a guy that, the offensive line, it sounds like, unless they're going to get real blue chip guys, those guys are probably going to sit. Like if you got a Rosengarten, is he going to play over McKivitz right away? Probably not. But if you got, Darius Robinson, I think he absolutely would play in a rotation right away.
Yeah.
They're looking for help right now. I'm going to say Darius Robinson to the Niners at 31.
It's a smart pick. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the pick, Larry. So we'll see.
All right, man. What do you got cooking? What are you going to be doing on draft day? You just hovering around looking for stories breaking? How will you be having a draft party? Have you rented out an amusement park or a restaurant or
amusement park?
All of the Rajites out there. I mean, have you rented out the Golden Gate Bridge or some
God, no.
something
the
major?
Golden Gate. I don't have that much money. No, I'm gonna keep it simple, honestly.
Maybe a boat ride cruise across the bay with all your followers. No,
yeah, that would be fun, right? Holy smokes. No, we're gonna keep it simple. We'll be live watching the draft. We'll talk about the pick. We'll definitely be looking for stories all day, leading up to the draft. Just as business as normal. Every year we get hyped up. We talk about the draft, pre-draft. The draft comes. We talk about the picks. I'm going to be live when the draft pick comes up. And hopefully we'll all be excited together. And that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. But no renting out a boat or anything of that nature. Yeah.
You're not running out a restaurant, a hall. There won't be, the Raj draft party.
No, I'll have my
invite
own
only.
Party.
Velvet Roads, maybe celebs.
DoorDash me some Wingstop and just enjoy the draft, man. That's it.
If I gotta go wings, I gotta say I go Hooters over Wingstop. Is there a Bay Area Hooters anymore? Is there a Hooters anywhere in the Bay Area?
Honestly, I haven't seen one, so maybe not. I have to look that up.
I think the Bay Area said no to Hooters, which is really a crime because it's a hell of a restaurant.
It's a good, they got a good wing there.
No doubt. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy. Thanks to Marin Autoglass. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. For Raj, I'm Larry. Tomorrow is draft day. It could not get here soon enough. No more mock drafts. No more speculation. The next time we talk, we'll be talking about actual 49ers. I can't wait. For Raj, I'm Larry. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get